Welcome to Pure Chess, and thanks for joining us. Today, we are tackling the chess challenges, and we're handling the mate and 5 ones, which are the most challenging of all of them. And we're doing problem number 16, which was the hardest of all the problems for me to solve. I'll break down how I did it in just a minute. When I attempt to solve a difficult problem, such as mate and 5, I try to focus on 3 different things, such as the king's flight squares, how many defenders black's main pieces have, and of course, our main pieces. First, let's take a look at the king's flight squares. Red are places the king cannot go. King can't go here because it's blocked by this pawn right here. The king cannot go right here because it's blocked by the queen. The king can't go either here or here because they're both blocked by pawns. The king has basically one move, and the king can go right here. This is good because, well, nothing is defending this piece right here. If we had something defending, it'd be covered, but there's nothing defending this pawn right here on a5. Now let's take a look at how many defenders black's main pieces have. Let's start off with this rook here on c8. If you'll notice, there are 2 defenders. There is the queen right here and the other rook. So we're going to write in 2 right there. And this rook on g8 has 1 defender. As you can see, that's this rook right here on c8. Next off, we're going to look at this queen right here. If you'll notice, this queen does not have any defenders, a big 0. So that's something to keep in mind. Let me write the 0 over here to the side. There are 0 defenders for that queen. So part of our solution is going to involve messing with this queen. And of course, last but not least, on the edge, of course, is this bishop right here. This bishop also has no defenders on it as well. So, okay, so our solution is going to have to involve something with the queen. Now let's take a look at our main pieces. We're going to start off here with these 2 rooks. The rooks can, either go this way or, this way, or of course, this way. Obviously, we'd want it to do one of the first 2 options. So those are the rooks. Now let's take a look at our bishop right here. And we have a bishop that's right here. As you can see, the squares are kind of highlighted in green where it can go. There's no real good spots that it can do as far as making a check, but we can improve our position with the bishop. Last but not least, there is the queen right here. And the queen, well, it has a few options anyway. The important thing the queen is doing right now is it's blocking right over here. And what that does is that prevents black from moving its king right here. It's blocking this important flight square. Now, if you also look in this yellow line, the queen can move other places as well, but let's focus on this yellow line here. One of the important spots in this spot right here is this specific square right here. I'll highlight that in purple. That's this square right here. That is the square we'd like to get our queen to, because then we can get it right here, and, that would be checkmate. But we have a little bit of a problem here, and that is, more specifically, this queen right here that black has. Now, this queen doesn't have any defenders, but this queen is defending, this square right here. So we can't exactly just move our queen there and make a move. That's what made the problem really challenging for me. Let's try to figure out how in the heck do we get this queen out of here so we can get our queen into this spot right here. And, the other question I had is, should I be protecting this pawn right here on a5? And, that's kind of a big question mark there. Do we protect it or not? And, the other question is, how do we move this queen? So there's a lot of different variations we're looking at here. But if you'll notice, when you go back to this bishop right here, the bishop isn't really doing anything. So the bishop is going to be our piece to move. What we'd like to do is draw this queen away, and we've got a little bit of an elaborate solution to this. But what we're basically going to do is take the bishop, and we're going to move it forward to c7. Our intent here is to move the queen away. Unfortunately, black responds with a check from the rook onto g2, which forces us to make a move here. Our best option, of course, is the queen, moving that queen to g2 and taking the rook. That keeps our queen in position to do what we'd like to be able to do. So we're going to go ahead and recapture with the queen there. Now you may or may not have noticed black moved its queen to c7 right there. The question for us is, how do we get black's queen off from this 7 line? What can we do to get the queen off from there? And more importantly, have it stop defending this b7 square right here. Well, if you think another level ahead, you'll notice we have 2 rooks right here. And, black's king is a little bit in trouble here. We need to force black to make a move. And to do that, what we can do is we can capture the pawn on c5. That'll put black in check. And more importantly, it's going to force black's queen to leave and defend that c5 square, because the king can't exactly move. The king has no flight squares other than the queen to block, which is good for us because that means this b7 square is going to be open for our queen to go to and set up the last move. All right, enough of the chalkboard. Let's go ahead and do it. We are going to play a rook c2 to c5 check. So right here, black responded as predicted by moving his queen to c5 and taking our rook. The good news for us is we've got the queen off defending that important b7 square, which we had been eyeballing for quite a while. And now what that's going to do is open up a check from our queen by moving it to b7, leaving the king with only 1 flight square, and that's basically the a5 square that we talked about earlier in the game. But we have a plan here. And that plan involves moving the rook from c1 to a1, which will put black's king in check, and this will be checkmate because black's king will have nowhere to go. And of course, that is going to wrap this up and solve the problem. Now, just in case you missed a move or two, what I've done is I've listed the final moves on the left side, the white on the left and then black to the right of that. It shows all the moves we made here, so you can write those down just in case you want to give it a try yourself. And of course, that is going to wrap this up all the way. We've solved it and we're all set. And that's the last of the problems for me on this pure chess game. Thanks for watching and good luck.